there's something to be said to not hang around women all the time. So if it's just your daily bread that you come home to, it's just your daily bread. But if you limit that time spent together, it becomes that sweet, amazing thing, that special occasion that makes her feel like that queen that she, oftentimes would like to feel like.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Men with Purpose. Today, I have the pleasure and an honor to be joined by John Aigner. So John is a coach and a mentor for men. He's running the community Mannsvolk in Berlin. He's been on the path of conscious living and men's work for more than 10 years now. I originally met John actually at this year's Maniphesto event, Death of the Patriarchs. And I wanted to bring him on to share some of his wisdom with all of us here today. So with that being said, John, thanks very much for being here.
Good to be here, Pavel. Hey.
I normally start this conversation with just, inviting you to take a deep breath. If you want to close your eyes, up to you. And let's just do a quick check-in. What is present for you right now? Whenever you're ready, anything you want to share?
I feel good. I had a rather productive and not stressful day, so that had a nice balance, and it took us a while to be able to find a time and day to actually get together and do this. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. I enjoyed meeting you at the EMG event, so I'm excited to hear what questions you brought today.
Yeah, likewise. I'm checking in with gratitude. We went on a little bit of a pause with respect to the podcast. I was like snowed under work and other commitments. So it's kind of almost like starting all over again, because it's been like a few weeks now that I haven't done it. Feels like, to me at least. So I'm excited also to deep dive into this a little bit more. Nice. So I'm curious. So we did, we met at the EMG in Denmark in August, I think, and we did get a chance to talk a little bit. But I'm actually curious a little bit more about you, and I guess what got you on this path of conscious living, learning men's work. What was life before you kind of discovered this?
Well, the answer I have for it is like, I live my life as a man, and being in the male perspective from in that sense. And on another vein, I've always been that person who likes to hear stories of humans and dive into personal talks and go deep in one-on-one conversations. So I've always sort of been this guy that very much does what I do now in men's coaching, which is a lot of sort of like one-on-one conversation and single sessions. And I've always loved community. So that's the reason I'm also doing like group workshops and help organize larger events like Mannsvolk conference and things like that. So it's very much a fit for me. I've always been that person, and this is very much like my purpose, or a very good vehicle for my purpose in the world. And so it really sort of manifested itself bit by bit from kind of just who I am. So I feel very grateful and blessed in that sense that I found my calling, or very much feel like I'm in alignment with my purpose. I think that's probably the best answer I can give to that.
Well, was there a particular moment where you decided, okay, I'm actually going to start working with men? And for someone that is listening right now, and I sometimes often speak about resistance, or men, have this kind of tendency to spend all this money on, business or getting better with women. But when it comes to their emotional health, or looking into the closet, what's in the closet, what things are stored there, like what emotional trauma is, everybody seems to, like, obviously I'm generalizing here, but majority of men seems to be a little bit like, that's a no-go zone for me. Was there a particular, um, how to say, a moment that led you to, okay, this is the thing I'm going to do? Like you said, I'm going to be following my purpose. Or did it just because the nature of your character, your background, your natural inclination, this kind of unfolded as a very natural, natural path for you?
It felt very natural, but I did not realize this was my purpose. And I also believe that there's probably different ways of expressing a purpose, but this is a very good fit, or like I feel very much at home in this. So it feels very much like the perfect way, or the perfect way of living that purpose, or actually, because purpose also has to do with feeling purposeful by what you're doing. So I think purpose is also an action in a way, or being like you feel that you're in alignment with your purpose when you're actually doing something that feels purposeful. So at the time when this came, and yeah, there was a moment like that. I did not realize this. It sort of coincided with me actually going to this camp with 40 men in the forest, like giving each other workshops and enjoying community. And this was actually a first time thing for me, being among men in that way and having like a heartful community that was non-competitive. It was, we did men's things like, I don't know, wrestle or tussle and be playful in that way, but it was heartful and connected and non-competitive in a sort of, I guess, yeah, like competitive way. So that was like a big eye opener and heart opener for me. And it was actually during that camp when I was giving my first pretty sort of improvised workshop, where I was drawing from things that like crazy ideas I had in my photo work, or stuff that I had done previously in workshops that I had taken part in as when I was doing improv theater, say, stuff like that. So I was just drawing from things from my past and came up with this little impromptu workshop, doing a bunch of crazy exercises with these men at this camp. And that was really something that moved these men so much that I was surprised how much they had been, how much whatever I was doing there had such an impact on them. So that was like a moment that made it conscious, like, oh, there's something that is beautiful about being in a community of men and sharing stuff. And also like, oh, there's just something I did and it meant a lot to these participants, which were these men. So that made me realize that there's something, or I was on to something. And then over the course of a couple of years, I was offering these kind of workshops, and then more and more people were coming to them. I was getting a lot of requests of hanging out and having deep talk with other men, and so coaching started as sort of like a side job that I started charging money for, because there was just so many men coming to me really asking for advice and mentorship and all that. So it was presenting itself to me, and I followed it, or there was a door that opened and I decided to walk through it. And so that's how that came about. And that one camp was that pivotal moment where I came to realize that this is the direction I should be going.
Yeah, I'm grateful that you listened to that call and you had the courage to really step into that, because let's face it, not everybody gets the call or is curious enough to explore what's beyond their comfort zone, let alone when they do find it or stumble upon it, they don't necessarily go into that straight away. So yeah, I think it speaks a lot about really being able to step into that, which sounded like if unfolded rather naturally, maybe, perhaps.
Very naturally. It felt just so in alignment, which is a blessing. But in a way, I think when you strike that note or like that, when you strike that spot where it feels you are in the right, you're in the right place. I think that you feel that alignment, and that where it becomes very, very natural and also very easy. At least that's certainly how it was for me. And there was a second part to your question that I haven't sort of answered yet, as far as how men usually go about stuff, and how, you know, they like to focus on, say, business or finding women and all that kind of stuff. And that's true. And another thing that's true is that men sometimes don't open up to asking for help or open up to other men, you know, until it really hurts. You know, it's usually like, you know, women or relationships and sexuality are a big issue, because, you know, they're a very primal and deeply human area, you know. So when it doesn't work there, that's when men finally come. And it's like kind of like when they're heartbroken, or their penis doesn't work the way they want it to work, you know, that's when they finally will go and get help. And, you know, and it tells you about the world we live in, where there's a lot of, you know, men are not supposed to like express pain or emotion, or only certain emotions are okay for men to express, you know. And there's also something to be said for men, or adult men, to be able to not always be, you know, governed by their feelings continuously, you know. So I think it's very much about range, you know. But I think to get there, what I mean by range is range of behavior, you know, as being, say, strong and sort of classically, or almost like stereotypically masculine, kind of like being stoic, say, you know, which I think is a great quality and a much needed quality, you know.
Especially today, yeah.
Yeah. And then, but what I think the good news is also that our world has opened up in a way that there's more freedom for men to also be fully human, in the sense that they can also allow themselves to show themselves in that vulnerable space, which used to be kind of, you know, sort of associated with, say, weakness or even femininity, you know, which, so I think the new twist on that is that courage means not being able to suppress your feelings, which sometimes might be necessary when you're, I don't know, trying to save a baby out of a burning building. You know, you're not supposed to be emotional and crying. You're supposed to get the baby, you know. So, but then there's also times when it's the courage is to really pull down your pants and say, I'm hurting. I feel like crying. Fuck, this hurts, right? So to me, that's sort of contemporary courage, and a courage that has more freedom behind it, to actually show the full range of human emotions that human males can also experience. You know, it's not just a certain set of emotions that men can express, which traditionally was maybe anger or, you know, some kind of a vengeful power expression, you know, where that then emotions were okay, you know. But when it came to being vulnerable and whatever might be in that area of vulnerability was like forbidden, which is not a good idea, because it makes us unhuman, I think.
Yeah. I feel there is so much to be said about this topic. And I was speaking with this gentleman, Raffia Morgan. So he was referring to men being emotionally castrated because they wouldn't necessarily acknowledge all these feelings, and thus depriving themselves of energy, which is stored somewhere in their body, but they're not harnessing it, and thus losing out something, you know, quite valuable or invaluable, someone might argue. And so I was speaking with another gentleman on the podcast, and he said, you know, men's work is not supposed to be therapy, but is therapeutic. So it's not about, you know, coming together and just crying as men, but really having deep, meaningful conversations around pretty much every topic. Really, it's really about coming here and being seen and being heard, as opposed to what some people might say, or at least some of the feedback I've been getting from men who are maybe starting out on their journey and kind of projecting a little bit of their shadow, oh, like, why would I come together and like cry? And it's not even about the crime, but just coming together in being amongst men. That whole thing is a little bit very alien to them. Um, and so and part of me thinks, okay, I kind of see this through the lens of men's work. Majority of man-made problems are due to maybe men, children running around and like wielding so much power and hurting so many people rather. Maybe that's my perspective of being too idealistic, but I understand that there is a season for everything. There is a time for everybody. Not every man is ready to step up for something like this, but I guess what would you say to someone who is listening to this right now? Maybe it's going through something difficult, and maybe something here resonates for them. Like, what would your advice be? Where should I start if they're suffering right now? They're going through something difficult, or maybe they just need, like you said, a sense of community in a brotherhood with other men.
Well, you already answered a few things like in your question, I think, or like stuff that I certainly believe in. There's a lot that was in there, what you just said. I think, yes, harnessing your feelings is a great expression and that means in all directions, because I was just talking about, that men traditionally, their emotions that were allowed were maybe anger or like stuff associated with aggression or dominance or vengefulness, right? But that's not even, and the vulnerability was forbidden. But now we're living in a time that kind of both sides are forbidden. I mean, if you're, like if men are emotionally castrated, it's on both sides. They're not allowed to be angry anymore either.
I know, it's like,
they're because it's destructive, or they're not allowed to be strong anymore because it's too dangerous, or so it becomes that's part of what men's work is really about, to really I call it to really allow men the full range of human emotions, and yes, there might be ways of how men express certain emotions, and that might be very different than how women do it, and that might be because of how they've been taught, by how our world is, but it might also be partially because of that's how testosterone makes you do stuff, or there's certain tendencies that might be hormonal, right? And that's, of course, that's a huge topic, but I just wanted to kind of bring that in there, that we're sort of castrated from both sides, right? And that's why there's a lot to do to really also be able to get to know that wild animal that can be destructive and dominant in you, and really learn how to ride that strength rather than suppressing it and acting like it's not there, right? And same goes for the vulnerability side. Like, acting like it's not there is not gonna make you a man that knows what's going on inside of him, right? So yes, in a way, there's an immaturity, or there's an invitation by our day and age to stay man-childish, and the price that will be paid for it. So, and maybe part of that price is why a lot of men seek, like going through something like you're saying, like they might be going through, emotional pain that they don't know how to express, and who to express it to, and that might come from part of these questions that our society or the world we live in presents us with, or the sort of confusion, the confusing messages we get, oh, you're too wild, or yeah, you're too pussy, like that kind of stuff. So that certainly plays into it, I believe. But from, this is also the area that I work most in, which is very much intimate conversations with men, or very, talking about really the deep heart of what's going on in their lives, and very much from, like, I'm not a political activist, I just give, sometimes because of my men's organizations, I might comment on something, but my main job is to really have conversations with other men trying to help them to lead a better life and a happier life and a more fulfilled life, which to me is all emotional mainly. I think we're creatures of emotion on a primal level, and even in our like development as a human species, like the brain stuff that we're doing right now came much later, right? So that emotional safety is really something that we all seek. And I think that connection within ourselves and also with the other humans on this planet is what we seek, right? So emotional safety within and also feeling community are like two essential human things. And to give men an opportunity to express that or experience that is really what men's work is about for me in a lot of ways, or that's where my work starts oftentimes. So if I would give advice to a listener right now, say, it's like, who is a man you can turn to? What is that community, that brotherhood that will give you that support when you can't hold space for yourself all the time, right? Because that's human. We can't always hold space for ourselves. So having, say, a men's group or a mentor can be so healing and also so comforting. And that's where the foundation is laid for that strength that can come out of you as a man who can sort of penetrate the world with his gift, right?
Yeah, that's a great advice. And I like to pick on something that you said, was to actually experience something like this. It's, talking is one thing, but when you're in a space, in a kind of a ritual space where maybe it's an event or maybe a weekend with a bunch of guys in the woods, and someone that's actually skilled can take you on a journey through kind of a rites of passage or some sort of an initiation. That's where, for me, you really get a sense of what this is all about. When you go really, really deep with other men, and it's beyond talking, but there is more of a ritual around it. That's when I'm like, wow, okay, now I feel I can really, really connect with the other man. I can really see him for who he is. Strip away all the judgment, strip away all the guilt, and really be present. So sometimes some guys ask me, what is this men's work? What's your kind of take on this? Or I guess, what's your definition of men's work? How would you kind of describe it to someone?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, because it depends on where that person is at, who's asking that question, I believe. But if I had to explain it to a journalist, it's really about, it's like, men learn from other men. So it's important who they learn from and who they surround themselves with and what the values are that this community abides by, right? So it's very much about giving men the opportunity, or if you're a man looking for that, to find yourself a good band of brothers or a good group of men that will be able to give you that social feedback from a man to man perspective, in a way where there's something instinctual where we model after each other as humans, and boys model after men for the most part, not only, but there's a strong tendency. So it's important who their mentors are, who their fathers are, or who their, if not biological, but sort of chosen fathers are. So that's kind of the reason for men's work, or the principle of men's work, which is as old as time. Right? What you touched upon, saying like rites of passage, or being initiated into, say, adulthood, or the next step of your life as a man. It's curious that apparently for millennia, that's always been there in tribal cultures. It's been around everywhere, so it's kind of what we've been doing. And now we find ourselves in a time, a very short time, or a very short era of like maybe a couple of 100 years, but probably even less, you know, if you count how the job world, even in factories and whatever, used to function, where there was a lot of time spent among men all day long, you know, and
Mm.
learning from, as a man, from other men was built into the job at the factory or even at the lumber yard or whatever it may be, you know. So now we have arrived at a time where we're like, oh, we want to be equal, and we're, you know, and that's a great thing. As a you know, I think I'm all about progressive ideas, or I'm very much influenced by, I grew up in like among beautiful, strong women. So I grew up in a loving matriarchy almost, you know, and I was
Mm.
very much during my school years influenced by like feminist and even queer perspectives and cultures. So I'm all about, I'm quite a lefty in a way, you know,
Mm.
but there is something there that we need to learn from other men, and that has nothing to do with that in that sense, where we're just arrogant to think that we can just not need any of that anymore, that humans have been practicing for thousands of years, right? That
Mm.
we're like, oh, we're too cool and too progressive now to even need that anymore, you know. So I think we're paying the price for that, that men are not provided with a rite of passage in a proper way that, yes,
Mm.
suits our times now. Yeah, it's not quite the same as in the Amazon or whatever. That's fine, you know. It's but what do we, I mean, to me, a question is, what are we doing today in our world to be able to initiate men into adulthood, or whatever the next step in their journey as a man may be,
Mm.
you know. So yes, these are rituals, and that's also why my coaching style is very much about experiencing
Mm.
and embodiment, because it's something that's not it's not so much a cognitive brain thing. It's really something that when you've experienced it with your body, then it's real. Then you
Mm.
really got it. It's not just you didn't understand it, you got it, right? So that's what I believe, why I believe that rituals and rituals of rites of passage and initiating men were always there, because it's
Mm.
part of the human makeup. When we experience it, then we
Mm.
have a marker, then it's inscribed in us, right? So that's why I very much believe in experiential learning in that realm.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I think majority of men, and again, I realize I'm generalizing here, but they seem to be stuck in, sometimes myself included, they seem to be stuck in the head predominantly, overthinking, over intellectualizing, and the body is kind of being a little bit left out for a bunch of reasons, which, you know, we can go deeper into that. But, you know, yeah, you know, men are made by men, and you know, I think we've kind of fallen a little bit prey of our own progress, and maybe that's part of evolution, the industrial revolution, what happened back then, where, you know, man and father were kind of separated, and fast forward 100 and maybe what 200 years, now we're in this kind of a mess where there's all these kind of labels flying around, toxic masculinity. To some extent, I understand. Like, I think there's, you know, violence, and this whole thing with Me Too movement is raising awareness around this kind of notion of wounded masculinity, where this kind of the man child who is thinking that, oh, I can do whatever I want and there wouldn't be any consequences. But at the same time, this kind of new wave, maybe a little bit progressive, it seems like it's canceling masculinity. Is masculinity as a whole is a bad thing. I'm thinking, is this really the right way of thinking about it? So there's a lot of things right now, a lot of things to debate and to get into, and yet we seem to be missing the mentors, the father figures. If we, let's say, we weren't fortunate enough to have a biological father, but where are all the good mentors? Like, where are all the good men? And through my own journey, realizing that, okay, here, doing this work with you, we're building this kind of next generation of men who are not just spine and no heart, but also a bit of both, right? They're combining both heart and spine to I think, lead men into and kind of the next phase of this whole journey, if you will. I'm getting a little bit on a tangent here. I don't want to do that, but yeah, like even to go on another slight tangent, I'm going to you know, train jiu-jitsu and grappling, and I can see some of the younger men there. Just, I don't know what it is, but they just kind of, you gravitate around you, and they're like, what, 16, 17 years old, and they just kind of yearning for some kind of acknowledgement. And you know, before I couldn't feel that, and now when I go there, you could just smell it from like, you can almost like sense it from afar. It's a very, and it's reminiscent of my own childhood, and when I was a young boy, when I really wanted to be seen by someone, and
Yeah,
that happened. But the how powerful something like this is wow. Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's beautiful how you express that, or like I like the way you were describing it. Yes, mentorship is also the big part in there. I mean, yes, there's men that are fucking up big time, and every human being, man or woman, who's fucking up big time and is committing crimes and hurting other people, be it rape or otherwise, yes, that's when it's happened and it's a tragedy. And yes, then all we can do is sort of, you know, look to the legal system to sort of clean up certain things when it's already happened, of course, you know. But all these men that are fucking up, they were boys not having a mentor or having peers that you know, were that, these teachers that said, no, don't do that, that's fucked up, stop it, right? Or yeah, that's great, now I can respect you, now I can trust you, yeah, now I can feel your heart, right? So it's a human makeup thing. We need people around us to give us feedback, so we learn and we can form an identity and behavior patterns, right? So it's really that what men's work is, you know, to, like you said so beautifully, teaching the next generation, or also the current men on this planet. You know, it's never too late. But there's all age groups that come to me for mentorship, you know. So it's a continuum, or there's a spectrum there, right? But especially the next generation, say, like what you're describing, I experience all the time. There's like men, oftentimes younger men, surrounding me with this like mentor hunger or like father hunger, you know, like it's very much that. And I can totally, I would totally assume that would happen to you when you're in sports, or like starting to teach younger men like about jiu-jitsu or whatever it may be, right? So yes, isn't it interesting that every boy kind of, or I'm assuming, or like that's my experience, or like it's a huge tendency, and perhaps every boy is looking for that mentor, and it's important that they're there, right? And it's also, again, oftentimes for me, it comes back to also value systems of like, what values are we teaching? So we need, and a value system is also a structure, which is a masculine structure by principle. It's the skeleton, it's the phallus, it's the column, it's the rock in the surf, right? So it's that thing. So structure and the value system these structures are built by is what counts, I think.
Yeah. I was speaking with my partner right now, thinking about, you know, where the world is headed right now, and you know, different people have different opinions on this, and it just kind of dawned on me, and this was a few months back, that a major component, yes, we talk a lot about men's work here, and sometimes maybe people assume that that's all that we're interested in, but I think having men who are conscious and dedicated to some kind of an ideal, following their purpose or embodying that even, impact both men and women. And for those boys in the next generations to really grow up in a society, in a place where, you know, it's okay for them to kind of show up and be themselves, be angry, or, you know, cry, or whatever it is. We need kind of both parents to come together and really be able to provide a space where a boy could be raised. Because yeah, whatever the boy looks like, monkey see, monkey do, sort of thing, right? It sees the father, if he's there in the family, and does exactly the same thing. And before I couldn't like make that connection, but obviously it's very obvious right now, is when I see a boy, how consciously or unconsciously becomes like his father. Same with me. Like I still have some tendency with my dad, and the moment that kind of penny dropped with me, I thought, oh wow, I really need to be paying attention to the way I'm acting, because one day, if I'm fortunate enough, I'm going to become a dad, and yeah, I'm going to become, you know, I'm going to be a role model for someone. So I'm kind of sometimes even thinking I'm acting as if someone's watching, so that I kind of really ingrain this in my body and try to embody it, as opposed to just regurgitate some theoretical information that I read in a book or something like that. So yeah.
I love that. I love what you just said. I act like somebody's watching. Yes, the consciousness means you are seeing what you're doing. You know, and some people also would say God is watching, which is fine too. God is for me an embodiment of consciousness, but that's a belief system. You know, I just don't happen to be a Christian, but it's you know, it's that. Yes, somebody is watching all the time, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
So I think that's a beautiful thing you just said. And what you also just said is like your father, and you realize, oh, wow, there's a bunch of stuff like where I'm like my father. You know, so yes, who teaches us, who raises us, has a huge influence, whether we like it or not. And I think it's also a beautiful way of saying, like, what our traditions are, if you will. What is that knowledge that has been passed down? And what we touched upon earlier, saying, how arrogant of us to think, oh, we don't need any of that rites of passage stuff anymore that has worked for humankind for millennia, right? So I think it's the same with that. We all come from somewhere, whether we like it or not. And I think as a collective, as humankind, we come from somewhere, and there's certain things that are not really changeable. And yes, with consciousness, we can pick and choose, just like you can say, oh, damn, I'm turning into my father. And the moment you realize it, you can say, oh, this I will adapt and keep. This is beautiful. I'm so glad he taught me that. This is what I need for life, for my life, right? And then there's other stuff where I'm like, no, I don't want that. This shit ends with me, Dad, right? And I think it could be the same for, you know, old knowledge as from say rites of passage and stuff. So it's not about like, oh, everything masculine is bad, or men, you know, like, it's whether we like it or not, there will be stuff that will come up, and we can choose, okay, there's old stuff that we will always need. And then there's stuff we don't need anymore, and what are we doing instead of it? Right? To me, that's a here and now perspective of like integrating everything that's been there, you know. So in a way, from that point of view, what has always been good about masculinity, and how can we foster that again, in the sense of really making a better world, right? Being that loving creator or co-creator of the world, as all human beings are, I believe, right? So asking that questions are like, what do we integrate and what do we need to change is a highly interesting one.
I remember, I keep quoting people from the conversations I've had, but this guy, Ben Goreski from Samurai Brotherhood, he said, you know, we have epigenetic responsibility to really excavate whatever wounds we're carrying from, you know, 7 generations past, or even from your father, and really be able to say, you know what, the buck stops with me, as you said. And I guess, a little bit saddened because up until I kind of discovered this whole realm, which was really a paradigm shift, a red pill moment, if you will, that, wow, there is this thing, this notion of actually becoming a better man. Like, I don't think we see it enough in today's culture. Like, we're bombarded with all this kind of information, and if it wasn't up to, my curiosity, I guess my faith would have it that I would stumble upon this, which wasn't even called Mannsvolk. It was just like becoming a better man, which led me to there's this whole field of Mannsvolk and this kind of notion of ritual and rites of passage that literally, I think, virtue in every single culture since, the dawn of man, has been and still is to this day in some of the native indigenous tribes in either in Africa or in South Africa, South America rather. And yet we don't really hear it as much in today's culture. Like, young boys, like, I didn't even know this whole notion that, whether you like it or not, that there does come a time where you'd have to be, kind of dragged away from the women, not, necessarily physically, but just like taken away from your comfort little home, put it in a no man's land, this kind of liminal space. Something intense is going to happen to you, perhaps a little bit painful, but to a point where a part of you dies, and then you're reborn, and you can take back and take, you're put back and take more responsibility. And the beauty in that, but yet it seems to be, I think we need more of that, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Well, because we talked about embodiment and experiencing. It's in these moments and spaces where it really is marked, and what, like, we physically experience it. That's why all rites of passage are experiential. So it's embodied, and why there's oftentimes challenges or even like pain that is experienced during these rites of passages. It's to prepare you for what you're going to experience. Every life will have pain. Every life will have loss. So are you going to be ready for it, or are you going to be sort of shielded and protected and then not be prepared for it when it happens? Right. So to me, that's part of why there's challenges or things you don't get to choose during rites of passage or initiation rituals. And it makes perfect sense, because yes, then you're prepared. And not only does that ritual prepare you, it's a whole society prepares you all your life, because they know the day is coming where there is that rites of passage, and you got to be ready for it. Otherwise, you're gonna not make it through, right?
Yeah.
So there's a beauty in that, because the whole society, or say your tribe,
Village or community,
world, your community, make sure you're ready. Because there is that marker. It also is like, say, I don't know, when they're 16 or whenever it may be, this is when they need to be ready. So the whole village, the whole tribe, the whole community needs to make sure that child is ready, boy or girl, whatever it may be. But oftentimes boys, because we don't have biological markers as strongly as, say, birth or menstruation or stuff like that. So and there's a huge beauty in that, because that's what we're lacking, because when that day comes, when you're becoming a man, or that period when you're becoming a man, that chapter ends. There is no going back to being a child. Whereas we live in a society where we're like, oh no, we don't need markers, it's fine. Man. We're so cool, and you can always go back. You can turn on your smartphone and play again, just like when you were like a child. You can always go back, and somebody will bring you your food, somebody will bring you your sex, somebody will bring you your new Amazon package, whatever. So it's very much this, oh, I can always go back. It's a little bit like like a person we both know, Alexander Bard, always says, it's like you can always go back to the tit and suck on it, right? And so like a child, right? So it's that, and it's gonna be wishy-washy. There's not gonna be any clarity, and because everybody, if we're not required to become adults, yeah, it's easy to perhaps just, you know, go back being a child every day a little bit for a few hours, and just carry on with the program, so to speak. So again, it's realizing that consciousness, and then you actually get a chance to change something about that. And then it's up to you to, what a lot of men need to do these days is kind of figure that out and then initiate themselves, you know, because oftentimes it's not even the parents letting them go, you know. So there's so many of my
You have that too,
clients that
yeah.
come where I'm like, you know, they have to, the parents have no clue to, they need to let them go and need to let them make mistakes and not like tell them what to do all the time, right? So it's actually the men themselves saying, oh, I need to like separate myself from my mother. I need to like not let my dad constantly call me and tell me what job to take or whatever it may be, right? So there's a burden there in a way that men nowadays have to kind of exit that matrix of constant being a child that's being sort of served on, or that's sort of being nurtured by some digital tit, right? Oftentimes digital, and then say, oh, good. Oh, wow. What do I do? Oh, I need to initiate myself. Okay, what do I do? How do I challenge myself? What do I choose where I don't know if I'm be able to do it? How do I train for it to be ready? All those things, you know. And that's where, you know, mentors are required in a way. You know, without a mentor, that's not really going to happen. You know, or it's much harder to initiate yourself without having men by your side who have at least some kind of clue of how that's done.
Absolutely, can't agree more. You need men to initiate men. I think I don't think it's possible to initiate yourself. You need someone else to do it. You need to do it under someone's proper guidance, is what I'm trying to say. And afterwards, like you said, there is no coming back. It's not like the butterfly comes out and says, actually, I don't like this, and go back to being a cocoon. It doesn't work like this. And you know, throughout this process, I've been, you know, I guess in the last 3 years, really men's work and really leading circles, etc. But I came to the conclusion that this kind of manhood and masculinity, this really needs to be deliberately induced. Like there is no, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Like once you take a decision and you kind of, you know, cross that bridge, like there is no going back. Like, and how could you, like, you've been exposed to something like this. I guess it's easier for some men to say, okay, and kind of choose not to continue walking that path. But I don't know, for me, it's really difficult once you're exposed to something like this. And maybe it kind of, my viewpoint really drastically changed. I was like, wow, okay, I can see why we are here. And I mean, I can trace all these kind of, everything has a ripple effect, right? So I can trace all these maybe challenges or issues that we're facing today back to man children, and, you know, men not taking responsibility, etc., 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 and oppressing, etc. So I'm thinking, wow, okay, we need, basically we have a lot of work to do, put it this way.
Yes, and I think it's one way of sort of what you could call it. There's so many men children, so of course they're going to act like it, including all the fuck ups, if you will, right? So it's really about that. It's like, how do we find mentors? How do we, and this is sort of the educational part of men's work, I'd say, you know, to really spread the word. Oh, this is what's been going on for thousands and thousands of years, and we need to find a way of how we're going to do this now, because nobody's, it's sort of vanished. You know, it's totally up to chance. And the good news is there's still boys and men that are just fine, if you will, you know, because they were lucky enough to have a present father who sort of had his shit together, had, like, say, you know, other family members like grandfathers or uncles, or, you know, football coaches, or whatever it may have been, like, have a community. You know, like, I like that expression, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So had that network of influences that got him on the way. And these guys don't need men's work. They don't, you know, but much too often it's really up to like, you know, like if you're lucky, you have a functioning system where that will take place, and then it still works, and it still produces beautiful men even today, right? I believe that, and I always like to look to sort of the bright spots to sort of be pulled by, rather than, ooh, it's so bad, we need to get away from it. It's like a bad emotional pattern in my experience. So I like to look at, okay, what's good about the world right now, and how can we like fertilize and water that part, you know, and also by that say, look, isn't it good when a father is present? Oh yes, it is. Oh, isn't it awesome when there is
Fuck
somebody,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like, so that's when people get it. Then you don't have to explain men's work. It's ancient principles of mentorship and learning, like from another human that's like you know, and when you're a man, you most likely gonna feel closest to other men as far as like, who are my role models, right?
Yeah.
So that's just how it's always been, and it's not such a bad thing if you embrace it and make it something that's super like now, you know, and necessarily so, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, again, hitting something which is quite interesting. I get this oftentimes from other women is, but why can't women be there? You know, why cannot we see what you guys are doing? And I say, you know, I think it's important. I think Bard was saying that, oh, this kind of notion of desexualized spaces, right? Just because actually, I think it's important for a few reasons. One is because whenever there's a woman around, and guys, whether you like to admit it or not, men start acting differently. It's just part I think, biological. But when there's a woman in the room and it's only guys are going to start acting differently.
Especially man children, who have not harnessed their primal whatever bull that wants to fuck, right?
Yeah.
So yes, what you're saying is very true, and it has to do with that fact, right? So yes, in order for these men to learn that step of actually becoming an adult and behaving like it, you know, and yes, there are certain things we can't change on sort of the animal level within us. If there's a female and a male in the room, procreation is always sort of part of the makeup. It just will be. If it was rats, they would fuck. End of story.
Course. Yeah.
Right? So we're not rats, luckily, all that kind of stuff. But our primal animal part is at the table at all time. So yes, that's what that's how I interpret desexualized spaces.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way. So being among men will always be different than being among women for a man.
And it's meant to be different. Yeah, because
yes.
Some guys, you know, tend to put a lot of kind of on this emotional pressure or wounds or their own baggage onto their partners. And that's not, she's not meant to be your therapist. Like, go and like speak to other men, like be around other men in a, not as, like you said in the beginning, not as in a competitive environment, but in an environment where you know, seeing each other, you're really hearing each other, you're there without judgment, without guilt, without shame. You're there to support each other at the end of the day. So I think those three reasons is why you need to kind of have those two separated. And then when you come back, I bet your woman's going to feel that. If you've been through a weekend with other men, or something has happened like in a ritual space, you know, with some, you know, guidance and some people who have experience, men who have experience, I bet your woman's going to feel that, and she's going to be happier.
Yes, for sure. And, you know, it's there's something to be said to not hang around women all the time. Also for women, because the minute you don't always hang around women anymore, they become that special thing. It automatically, and that's how they want to feel. They want to be seen and be that one thing that you see and that you come back to, right? So if it's just your daily bread that you come home to, it's just your daily bread. But if you limit that time spent together, it becomes that sweet, amazing thing, that special occasion
Mm,
that makes her feel like the sweetest and the most, that queen
mm,
that she, oftentimes would like to feel like.
mhm,
So that's a little bit of a different topic now. That's polarity work, and how you maneuver polarity to really get these emotions that everybody craves, right?
mm,
So yes, spending a lot of time among men is a good idea also on that level, right? Where
mm,
yes, if you spend a weekend with men and all you've seen is men, or even 10 days or even longer, it's like, yeah, you're craving that beautiful, sweet everything that is female, right?
mm.
So it happens by itself that she will be special to you. She will be new to you. You will be choosing her yet again. All those things that are so beautiful when you feel that, right? And
Mm.
not just for women, by the way. I think we all have that part in us that wants to feel that way, But there's that cliche in a way, and women say, yeah, that's beautiful. Or when a man sees me and nothing but me, when I'm that one for him, and when he chooses me, that's like the best thing in the world, right? And it's much easier to do if you don't see her all the time. Right?
Amen to that.
Yeah, so it's not very romantic in a Hollywood kind of way, but
Mm,
it's actually in deep down what even the Hollywood movies are suggesting. It's like, she's special, she's the one, she's the sweetest thing in the world, right?
mhm, mhm,
So to me, that's how that works.
mm.
Spend a lot of time among men, and then women feel super sweet and super desirable and super, much,
Yeah,
much more easily. Yeah.
and I think that they also feel it when you're not necessarily craving their attention all the time and just like, look at me, I need your attention. Like, again, we're getting into polarity and different kind of social dynamics, but yes, it's a counterintuitive thing. Go spend time with men, learn how to become a better man, learn how to be interesting. Do like really embrace all parts of you. And yeah, I'm getting a little bit into preaching mode right now, but it's just, part of me, I was that guy, and chasing women, and I realized, wow, there's actually not much value in that. Like, I'd rather focus on me and do me and understand what makes me tick and what are the issues that I need to work on, and then magically that woman is gonna arrive one day.
Yeah. The path to women leads through the community of men, and and
Mm,
and men are, like you said earlier, men make men.
mm,
So for to be that relationship ready man, that fatherhood ready man, that taking responsibility and being trusted man,
mm,
men will teach you that, not women. So to sort of go to women right away will oftentimes lead to, oh, be my mommy and please open your legs so I can finally fuck, because that's what I need to do, right? So it's so it will be not very hot. I mean, it's not what a woman is supposed to be. She's not supposed to be your mother, right?
mm,
So to be ready to actually step into that space with a mature woman, or like a emotionally ready woman, which you will also attract when you're an emotionally ready man, right? So
mm.
like attracts like.
That's a good
Um,
point.
that's
Mm,
when the journey goes through the community of men.
mm,
No matter how much you want to fuck because your hormones are are raging during puberty. Of course that's happening. But if you have a mentor, he'll say, these are your hormones. This
mm,
is how you learn how to ride the bull. You don't
mm,
go to the woman, you learn how to practice to work with these energies, right?
mm,
And then you're ready to meet her.
mhm.
Not now, but when you're ready. So that's like an example of what mentorship in that realm, or on that subject, could look like.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole nother topic that I think we can spend probably at least a couple of hours without no prep and deep diving into. I'm conscious of your time, man. So First of all, thanks for sharing all that wisdom. If people resonate with all of this, and they want to know a little bit more about you, where can they go and visit?
Well, they can definitely stop by my website, mannsvolk.net. And I will be starting to teach English language workshops. There'll probably be one in the spring in Denmark, for example.
Nice.
They can certainly always reach out to me at any point in time for calls and single coachings, depending on where they're located, either online or in person. But yeah, that's where they can find me if they want to.
Cool. And one last question before we kind of really wrap up. Was there something that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't?
No, I think we did a great job. And like you said, there's so many great things we could make a whole new episode of this podcast about.
Sure.
But I think we touched upon all the juicy good stuff that we should have discussed. So I'm quite pleased, and it's been a real pleasure conversing with you, Pav.
Yeah, likewise. Pleasure is all mine. I'm just kind of facilitating the space, but everything that happens inside is a gift. So I'm very grateful. All right, folks, there you have it. Go check out John's website. If not, come to either his events or EMG next 2022. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.